I still remember the exact sound that changed everything. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was just the slow, steady squeak of a cleaning cart rolling across the marble floors of the lobby, a sound I'd heard 100 times before, a sound I had always ignored. But that night, the night when everything inside me shifted, that sound cut through the laughter around me like a blade. If I had known what was coming, I swear I wouldn't have laughed. I wouldn't have stood there pretending I was better than someone who had done nothing but show kindness every single day. But the truth is, back then, I cared more about fitting in than about doing the right thing. And that's the part that still stings the most. It all happened in Manhattan, inside the glossy tower where I worked as an administrative assistant, a building with so much glass and steel that it felt like it was built to intimidate anyone who didn't wear a tailor's suit. I used to tell myself that working there meant I was finally becoming someone, that my life was finally happening, that I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. Maybe that's why I ignored people who lived in the shadows of that building, especially the janitor. His name was Mr. Alvarez. I didn't even learn his first name until everything exploded that night. He was always there, quietly pushing his cart, picking up the trash, wiping off fingerprints from the glass doors. He wore old shoes with a solace almost flat, a uniform that looked like it had seen better years, and a calm expression that never changed no matter how rushed or stressed everyone else seemed. Sometimes he'd greet me with a small nod or a soft, "Good evening, miss," and all I ever did was smile back, tight and quick, the kind of smile you give when you're scared of looking weird. I never asked how he was doing. Never stopped for even a minute to talk. Not because I didn't want to, but because I thought people would judge me for it. Looking back now, I hate that version of myself. It was a Thursday night. We were wrapping up a busy week, and the team had decided to stay late for a little informal bonding. In reality, it was just a way for the loudest, cockiest people in the office to drink cheap wine and act like they were the stars of some corporate reality show. I stayed because I was afraid of being the one who went home early and missed the inside jokes the next morning. The lobby looked different at night, emptier, colder, like the building itself had taken off its makeup. The lights were dim, the city sounds muffled, and our voices echoed too loudly with every laugh. Someone had brought a portable speaker. Someone else had snuck in tequila. It felt reckless, childish, and wrong, but I stuck around anyway. That's when it started. One of my coworkers, Ryan, noticed Mr. Alvarez walking past us with his mop. Ryan always tried too hard to seem superior, even though he was constantly on the edge of getting fired. He nudged the guy next to him and said loudly, "Look at this guy. Same shoes every day. Does he even own anything else?" The group laughed. I froze for a moment, waiting for someone to say, "Come on, man, that's not cool." Nobody did. So instead of saying something myself, I laughed. Not a big laugh. Not one that came from me. A forced laugh. A coward's laugh. Mr. Alvarez pretended he didn't hear. He just kept cleaning, his movements slow and careful, like he was trying not to disturb anyone. But the more he tried to disappear, the more Ryan pushed. "Hey man," Ryan called out. "You missed a spot right here. Want me to show you how to do your job?" More laughter. I remember my throat tightening from the tension. But I still didn't say anything. When Mr. Alvarez approached to throw away some trash, another coworker, Ashley, pulled out her phone and whispered, "Record this." She angled the camera like she was capturing footage for a comedy show. I wanted to tell her to stop. I really did. But the words never made it past my lips. Deep down, I knew this wasn't funny. I knew it wasn't harmless. I knew we were hurting someone who had done absolutely nothing wrong. But belonging is a powerful drug. And I was addicted. Mr. Alvarez looked smaller somehow. Like he was shrinking inside himself, trying to endure it. I caught the faintest tremble in his hands while he wiped a table we had smudged with fingerprints. He didn't look angry. He didn't even look sad. Just tired. Deeply tired in a way I didn't recognize yet. Ryan took a step closer to him. "Hey, amigo," he said in a mocking accent. "Say a joke for us." "Come on, you must have something funny to say." My heart started pounding hard. I hated everything about what was happening. But I felt glued to the floor. I hadn't realized how quiet the lobby had become until that moment. The building always felt huge, but that night, the silence wrapped around us like a warning, like something was about to break. Then we heard footsteps. Slow, steady, confident footsteps approaching from behind the janitor. None of us turned around at first. We didn't care who was coming. We were too wrapped up in our own little performance, our own little world. But something about the way Mr. Alvarez stiffened, almost imperceptibly, made the hair on my arms stand up. He wasn't looking at Ryan anymore. He was looking past him. Over his shoulder, as someone none of us had noticed. And just like that, everything inside me shifted. Because whoever was behind him wasn't just watching. They were standing still, silent, observing. I didn't know yet who it was. But I felt the energy change, like a door had opened to a truth we weren't ready for. "I think someone's behind you," I whispered to Ryan. He snorted and said, "Relax. It's probably security." But the janitor whispered something under his breath, something I couldn't quite hear. Not fear, not anger, something closer to recognition. And then, for the first time all night, he lifted his eyes, not at us, but at the man behind us. That was the moment everything snapped. The moment the laughter died. The moment the floor under our feet stopped feeling solid. Because the man standing behind him wasn't security. And he wasn't someone. He was the billionaire owner of the entire corporation, and he has seen everything. The moment I recognized him, my stomach dropped so fast I thought I might collapse. I had only seen him in magazine covers, business interviews, and giant framed photographs in the executive hallway upstairs. But even if I had never seen his face before, something about the silence that fell around him made his presence unmistakable. Power doesn't need to announce itself. It just arrives, and the room reorganizes around it. His name was Alexander Ward, the billionaire founder and owner of Ward Global Holdings, the company we all worked for. The man everyone in the building spoke about like he was some kind of myth. People said he was ruthless. Others said he was brilliant. Some whispered he had grown up dirt poor. But nobody really knew him. He didn't visit the building often. And never without warning. Except that night. He wasn't wearing an expensive watch or a flashy tie. His suit was dark, understated, perfectly tailored. His hair slightly messy, like he'd been thinking too hard to notice. His eyes, though. His eyes weren't cold like I always imagined. They were tired, heavy, observant in a way that made you feel transparent. He looked at us for a long moment, long enough for me to feel each second carve itself into my memory. No one understood why he was there. No one asked. No one dared. Then something happened that froze my breath inside my chest. He didn't acknowledge Ryan. He didn't acknowledge Ashley. He didn't even look at me. Instead, he walked straight toward Mr. Alvarez, and not with confusion or polite curiosity. Not with the dismissive tone executives use when they talk to staff at the bottom of the corporate ladder. He walked with familiarity, with purpose. "Luis," he said softly. Luis, his first name. The first time I had ever heard it. Mr. Alvarez's eyes looked down, swallowing hard. But his eyes shone in a way I didn't understand. Not fear. Not shame, recognition, emotion, gratitude. "Mr. Ward," Luis whispered. "I didn't know you were here tonight." The billionaire shook his head slowly. "I wasn't planning to be. I wanted to check something in the top office before flying out tomorrow. But I heard laughter." His gaze drifted past Liz and landed on us. It felt like being scanned by something invisible, something deeper than sight. I could feel my pulse everywhere, in my neck, my wrists, my ears. I wasn't even sure I was breathing. Ryan stepped forward with a nervous smile, trying desperately to salvage the moment. Mr. Ward, sir, we were just joking around. No harm done, Mr. Ward didn't respond, not with words. Instead, he did something that none of us could have expected. He reached out, placed a hand on Lucy's shoulder, and pulled him into a tight embrace, a real one, a long one. One that held history inside it. The lobby went silent in a way I had never heard before, not even at midnight. The air thickened. The world seemed to stop. When he let go, Mr. Ward's voice was softer. He leaned closer to Louise and said something only he was supposed to hear, but the quietness of the lobby carried the words to all of us. You saved my life. If someone had punched me in the chest, it would have hurt less. Ryan blinked, confused. Wait, what? Mr. Ward exhaled, stepped back, and looked at the rest of us. His expression wasn't angry. That would have been easier. Anger is loud. Anger is predictable. But disappointment? Silent disappointment. That's what brings grown adults to their knees. I want all of you to listen, he said. Every single one. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. When I was 24, he continued, I was broke, completely broke. Not in the dramatic way people use the word now. I mean really broke. Sleeping in shelters. Carrying all I owned in one bag. I didn't have a future. I didn't have hope. I didn't have anyone. He paused. The marble floor reflected his figure like a second ghost watching us. I was working odd jobs, trying to stay alive. Trying not to fall into places I knew I couldn't climb out of. And one winter night, when I had nowhere left to sleep, when every door was closed, he placed a gentle hand on Luce's arm. This man brought me into his home. Luce looked down, embarrassed. Sir, you don't have to. Yes, Mr. Ward interrupted softly. I do. His voice cracked just enough to make my throat tighten. He gave me a couch, a blanket, a bowl of soup. He didn't ask for anything. And for 3 months, when I was trying to get my life back together, he let me stay. He told me I wasn't worthless. He told me I could still turn things around. I felt something heavy sink inside me, shame, hot and painful. Ryan's face fell. Ashley lowered her phone slowly until her hand trembled. Mr. Ward stepped forward, coming closer to us. The sound of his shoes on the marble echoed like a verdict. You mocked a man, he said calmly, whose kindness shaped the path that built this entire company. No one spoke. No one moved. I could hear my heart beat like a drum. You mocked a man, he repeated, who showed more humanity in a one-bedroom apartment than most people show in a lifetime. I felt my eyes burn, but I didn't dare blink. That's when he noticed Ashley's phone. Give it to me, he said. She hesitated only half a second before handing it over. Her face was pale. Mr. Ward pressed play. The audio filled the lobby, our laughter, our voices, the mocking accents, the cruel jokes. Every sound felt like a knife. I covered my mouth with my hand. I couldn't breathe. When the video ended, Mr. Ward looked at us, not like an executive looking at employees, but like a teacher looking at students who had failed a moral exam. Do you think money makes you better than him? He asked softly. Do you think titles do? Outfits? Phone cameras? His questions landed like blows to the chest. But the worst part wasn't his tone, it was the truth inside it. Let me tell you something, he continued. Dignity is not a currency. Humanity is not a commodity. If you need someone to be beneath you to feel valuable, then you are already bankrupt. Something inside me cracked. I could feel it, like a mirror breaking. I kept replaying my own laugh in my head, over and over. That nervous, desperate laugh. That ugly sound that didn't belong to the person I wanted to be. I wanted to step forward. to apologize, to say something, anything, but guilt pinned me to the floor. Mr. Ward turned back to Luis. "Forgive them," he said softly. "They don't understand the weight of their actions yet." Luis shook his head. "I don't want anyone punished. I just want to finish my work." That sentence, so simple, hit harder than anything else. He wasn't angry. He wasn't vengeful. He just wanted peace. And that made our cruelty even uglier. Mr. Ward nodded. "You deserve better than that." He paused, then added quietly, "And starting tomorrow you'll have it." Lise looked up, confused, but Mr. Ward didn't explain further. Instead, he turned back to us and said in a tone that felt like a warning, "The universe echoes who we are. Every act, every word, every intention. It comes back, always." His eyes met mine for a second, just a second, but long enough for me to feel like he saw straight through me. Straight into the part of me I tried so hard to hide. The lobby felt heavier than ever. And for the first time, I realized this night wasn't about a billionaire or a janitor. It was about who we had chosen to be, and who we still could become, if we had the courage to face the truth. I didn't realize I was shaking until I tried to lean my hand on the counter behind me and my fingertips slipped. The lobby felt too bright, too exposed, like every fluorescent light had been turned into a spotlight aimed directly at my flaws. Weiss walked away quietly, pushing his cart toward the elevator bank, his shoulders slightly hunched, not in defeat, but in the way someone walks when they're trying not to disturb the air around them. A man who had been humiliated but refused to humiliate back. And somehow, that dignity made me feel even smaller. Mr. Ward watched him leave for a moment, then turned his attention back to us. His posture was calm, but not relaxed. There was purpose in the way he stood, an unspoken expectation that we would sit with what we had done instead of running away from it. Ryan cleared his throat, desperate to regain control. "Sir, we didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," Mr. Ward replied quietly. That shut him up, completely. The strange part was that the billionaire didn't raise his voice, didn't call security, didn't threaten anyone with HR or terminations. He didn't need theatrics. His disappointment was sharper than any punishment could have been. Every word he spoke felt like a mirror we didn't want to look into. Ashley stepped slightly forward. "Mr. Ward, I'm really sorry. It was just a stupid mistake." "A mistake?" he asked, not mocking, genuinely questioning. "A mistake is something you do without thinking. You planned this. You recorded it. You laughed while someone else tried to shrink into himself just to survive the moment." His eyes softened, but not in forgiveness, more like sorrow. "That isn't a mistake. That's a revelation." The word hit me hard. A revelation. Like our actions had revealed exactly who we were when we thought no one important was watching. My chest tightened, and I found myself speaking before I even realized it. I laughed," I said, barely above a whisper. "I don't know why I did. I didn't think it was funny." Mr. Ward looked at me, not with anger, but with a depth that made me feel more exposed than if I had confessed everything on camera. "You laughed because you wanted to belong," he said gently. "You laughed because rejecting cruelty is harder than joining it. You laughed because you thought silence would protect you." He paused and the room held its breath. But silence in moments like these is just another form of participation. A single tear slipped from the corner of my eye, and I wiped it quickly, embarrassed. I hated crying in front of people. I hated feeling weak. But maybe weakness wasn't the right word. Maybe honesty felt a lot like weakness until we got used to living with it. Mr. Ward continued walking toward us, slowly, like he wanted every step to mean something. "When I was at my lowest," he said, "when I felt useless and forgotten, Reese was the only person who didn't treat me like I was invisible. He didn't judge me by the dirt on my clothes or by the failures people whispered behind my back. He saw me." The lobby felt too quiet, like even the building was listening. "And tonight, he continued. You treated him like the world once treated me. That sentence hollowed me out. He wasn't just telling a story. He was handing us a piece of his past, raw, unfiltered, and painfully human. I imagine him younger, desperate, wandering the city with nowhere to go. I imagine Lise opening a door and saying, "You can stay here." I imagine the warmth of that apartment, the sound of a microwave heating soup, the softness of a borrowed blanket. I imagine hope returning in small pieces each night. Meanwhile, we stood here in designer shoes mocking the very man who helped build the foundation we were so proud to stand on. It made me sick. Mr. Ward reached the speaker that was still playing faint music and pressed the button to turn it off. The sudden silence felt heavier than any noise. What you did tonight, he said, is not something you can erase with an apology. But you can choose what it means for who you become. We stood there like children waiting for a verdict, but he didn't give one. He didn't say any of us were fired. He didn't say we were forgiven. He just held space for a truth that was uncomfortable but necessary. Then he did something unexpected. He walked toward the window, looked out at the city lights, and spoke as if to himself more than to us. There's a law in this world, he said softly. A quiet one. The more you try to make someone feel small, the smaller your own life becomes. But when you lift someone up, somehow, life finds a way to lift you too. The words sank into me like a seed planting itself in soil I hadn't realized was ready. He turned back toward us. Some of you, he added, will pretend this moment never happened. Some of you will blame someone else. Some of you will laugh it off tomorrow. But one or two of you will let this change you. And that will change everything. The strange thing was, I knew he was talking to me. Not because I was special, but because I was the one who felt the deepest crack forming inside. The kind of crack where truth gets in. He handed Ashley's phone back to her. Delete it, he said. She nodded quickly and erased the video, but the sound of it still echoed inside me. We stood there in a stiff, aching silence until Mr. Ward finally spoke again. Go home, he said. Think about the person you are tonight. Then decide who you want to be tomorrow. He didn't dismiss us. He released us. But before leaving, he walked toward the hallway Lise had taken, as if checking on him. The rest of us stayed frozen, unsure whether to follow or disappear. I finally broke the stillness. I wrapped my arms around myself and stepped away from the group. My legs felt heavier with every step I took toward the exit. With each echo of my heels on the marble floor, guilt beat inside me like a second heartbeat. As the revolving doors pushed me out into the cold New York night, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't ashamed of what the others had done. I was ashamed of what I hadn't done. And shame like that doesn't fade, it rearranges you. The wind outside was sharp, biting against my cheeks as if the world itself was trying to wake me up. Taxi lights blurred past me, horns blared, and conversations floated through the streets, but I felt like I was underwater, everything muted, distant. I walked home without music, without looking at my phone, without distraction. I needed to sit with the truth. I had laughed at a man who had saved someone's life. I had laughed at a man who had shown more kindness than I had shown courage. I had laughed because I was afraid of being alone. And in that moment, surrounded by the noise of the city, I realized the cruelest irony of all. I had never felt lonelier. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying everything in my head, the laughter, the silence, the video, the embrace between the billionaire and the janitor, the way Mr. Ward looked at us like he wasn't angry, just disappointed. It was the kind of disappointment that reaches deeper than punishment ever could. The kind that forces you into your own conscience like a room with no exits. By morning, the shame had settled into something sharper, something almost physical like a bruise under my ribs. I woke up with swollen eyes and a heaviness I couldn't shake. I showered twice, changed outfits 3 times, and still felt like I was carrying last night on my skin. Walking into the building felt like stepping back into the scene of a crime. My crime. When I reached the lobby, Lee wasn't there. His car was gone. The place looked untouched, quiet, almost sacred after what had happened. Part of me hoped he had taken the day off to recover. Another part feared he had quit to avoid ever seeing us again. In the elevator, Ryan stood beside me. He looked different, smaller, somehow deflated. He didn't make eye contact. For once, he wasn't trying to charm or dominate or perform. He just stared at the floor, gripping his coffee like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "What do you think is going to happen?" he whispered. I didn't know. And honestly, I didn't care about what would happen to us. All I cared about was what would happen to him, to Liz, but I said nothing. The elevator doors opened, and we stepped out into a hallway filled with quiet tension, the kind of tension that comes from shared guilt. At 9 a.m., an email from HR appeared in our inboxes asking the entire team to gather in the conference room. I felt my pulse quicken as I walked there. I had watched enough workplace scandals to know how fast things could spiral. I expected reprimands, disciplinary actions. Maybe worse. When I entered the room, Lee was already there. He stood next to Mr. Ward. Lee wasn't wearing his janitor uniform. He wore a clean button-up shirt and black slacks. New shoes, his hair neatly trimmed. He looked nervous, but also proud, like a man finally standing in his own story instead of someone else's shadow. Mr. Ward stepped forward, his voice calm and steady. "Good morning," he said. "I won't take much of your time. I simply want to clarify a few things." Every eye in the room was glued to him. "First," he continued, "Lee is no longer a janitor in this building." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Starting today, he is the new supervisor of facilities operations. A role he has more than earned." Lee swallowed hard, emotion tightening his jaw as a soft round of applause broke the silence. But then Mr. Ward lifted a hand, and the room quieted instantly. "Second," he said, "what happened last night is not being swept under the rug. It will not be ignored. There will be consequences. But I want them to be meaningful, not performative." My breath hitched. I braced myself. He paused for a long moment, choosing his next words with precision. "You don't fix a lack of character with paperwork," he said. "You fix it with accountability, awareness, and change." He let his gaze sweep over the room slowly, intentionally. When his eyes landed on me, I felt my chest tighten with the same guilt from the night before. "You will all attend a specialized program on workplace ethics and human dignity," he said. "Not because you're bad people, but because awareness is a discipline and empathy is a skill you must practice. If you don't, this industry will eat you alive and turn you into someone you don't even recognize." The words hit like a quiet truth I had been avoiding all my life. "And last," he said, "Lee has agreed to stay, not for me. Not for this company, but because he believes people can grow. I want you to make that belief worth something." Lee looked down, humble as always, but there was something new in his posture, strength, recognition, a sense of worth that had always been there but had finally been seen. When the meeting ended, everyone rushed out except me. I stood frozen in place, staring at the door Lee had just walked through. My legs felt rooted to the carpet. My chest felt heavy with something unspoken. Finally, I forced myself to move. I followed him into the hallway. My voice trembled when I called out, "Lee?" He turned around slowly. There was no resentment in his face. No anger. Just calm acceptance, the same gentle spirit he had always carried. "I'm sorry," I said. "It came out weak. Too small for the weight of what I felt. I should have said something. I should have stopped them. I shouldn't have laughed." He nodded softly, his eyes kind in a way that made tears burn the back of my throat. "People do foolish things when they're afraid of being different," he said. I've seen it all my life. I wasn't afraid of being different, I whispered. I was afraid of being alone. That's the same thing, he replied gently. Tears spilled over before I could stop them. He didn't look away. He didn't make me feel embarrassed for crying. Instead, he placed a hand over his heart and said, "What matters is who you choose to be moving forward." I wiped my face, embarrassed but lighter somehow. Like his forgiveness didn't erase what I'd done, but it gave me permission to rebuild the part of me I had abandoned. That afternoon, after work, I walked home instead of taking the subway. The city buzzed around me with its usual chaos: horns, footsteps, distant conversations, the faint smell of roasted nuts from the sidewalk cart. But the noise didn't drown out my thoughts. Nothing could. I kept hearing Mr. Ward's words. The universe echoes who we are. I didn't fully understand it at the time. But as I walked past strangers on the street, some rushing, some exhausted, some broken in ways I could see and others in ways I couldn't, I began to feel something shift inside me. Not a dramatic transformation, not some overnight change, but a quiet alignment. A sense that every thought, every action, every small moment of kindness or cruelty was part of a bigger picture I had been too blind to see. I had spent so much of my life trying to belong that I forgot belonging isn't something you earn by shrinking yourself or laughing at things that hurt others. Belonging happens when you live in a way that your own heart can recognize. At the end of the day, weeks passed, the team changed, I changed. And every time I saw Luis in his new role, walking confidently through the building, respected and valued, I felt something warm settle inside my chest. I never laughed at the wrong things again. I never stayed silent when someone else's dignity was on the line. And I never forgot the night a billionaire taught me the simplest truth. When you push someone down, you fall with them. When you lift someone up, you rise too. If this story made you think even for a moment, I hope you'll leave a comment. Tell me if you've ever laughed with the wrong crowd. Tell me if you've ever had a moment that cracked you open and changed the direction of your life. And if this touched you at all, even a little, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Stories are how we grow. Stories are how we remember who we want to be. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there needs to hear yours. This is a work of fiction created for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real events or the use of public names is purely narrative and does not represent real events.